It's a process that required years and years of negative groundwork to be laid by Ryan before it finally came to fruition. The injury itself had been set in motion years before Ryan ever picked up that 220 kilogram barbell. What's up guys, Enkiri here, and today I want to make a follow-up video to my original video on the recent Ryan Crowley pec tear incident. And before I get into it, if you enjoyed the video today, please do remember to hit the like button before you go. You don't have to hit it right now, but if after watching the video you find that you enjoy it or you find it helpful at all, then please do remember to smash that like button down before you go, because YouTube is currently stealing the likes off of my videos. They're literally taking my likes away. The likes are literally disappearing by the dozens at a time on my new videos. So please remember to hit that like button, and maybe we can help to offset that issue at least just a little bit and help to restore some freaking balance here. And also, please feel free to share the video around as well, and I'm sure that that will help to rectify that issue too. So anyway, I'm not going to rehash the Ryan Crowley injury today, because everybody's already seen it at this point or chosen not to see it at this point, whatever the case may be. But basically, in my first video on this same topic, I kind of did a recap of the specific training session where Ryan injured himself and tore his pec in a catastrophic fashion, and I pointed out a bunch of the red flags that were present within that training session that kind of made the occurrence of the injury not all that surprising, to say the least. And my point with that video was both to educate people on smart training practices, as what Ryan Crowley and Larry Wheels and the other guy in that video were doing in that training session was absolutely not smart training. And as such, that style really shouldn't be mimicked by anybody. It works for Larry, and to be honest, that's probably about it. But also, I wanted to hopefully assuage people's fears, right? Because when something like that happens, people inevitably become scared of the gym and scared that they could be next, like it's Final Destination, right? But the fact of the matter is, unless you too are guilty of all the red flags that I pointed out in that video, then the odds of something like that, something catastrophic of that nature happening to you, are so microscopically small that it's not even a fear worth having. So really, I just wanted to hopefully show people that intelligent and proper weight training is not an inevitable one-way ticket to Snap City, and hopefully to help get people back in the gym as soon as possible and not have them be afflicted by an unfounded case of PTSD after witnessing that catastrophic injury. And so in that video, I kind of isolated and put under a microscope the exact training session where the injury itself occurred. I offered a little bit of global perspective as well, but mostly I focused on the training session itself. And I did this primarily for the sake of illustrating just how ill-advised that particular training session was. But the thing is, even in the case of somebody like Ryan Crowley, where there are a bunch of red flags going on in the moment that kind of scream, stop doing what you're doing right fucking now, to anybody who's paying attention. Even in the case of somebody like that injury, catastrophic as it was, did not just happen in that moment on that day because it was destined to happen or any other hippy-dippy bullshit like that. Instead, it happened in all likelihood because Ryan had been laying the groundwork for it to happen for several years. In most cases, outside of freak accidents and external injuries like dropping a bar on your chest or something crazy like that, but instead where the injury occurs internally, like a tissue tearing, and it appears organic, the injury itself, the actual act of the body failing under load, is often just the straw that broke the camel's back. It's the last straw, right? But everything else that you have been doing or that had been going on leading up to that point also needs to be taken into consideration as a contributing factor for the failure, because most weight room injuries are the result of a culmination of events compounding on top of one another until finally something gives and the body sustains an injury of some sort somewhere along the chain. But that actual injury, the actual tissue failure, and the subsequent strain cannot and should not be viewed in a vacuum as a solo event, because it simply is not. And now that we've gotten this far, it's important to remember, I am not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist, and I'm not a medical professional of any sort, okay? I'm speaking solely from personal experience and my own primarily informal research here. So that's just a healthy disclaimer for you. But anecdotally, I have personally experienced 4 injuries that stand out to me over the course of my weight training career. 3 were minor muscle or tendon strains, right? I had strained my right adductor right in the middle, in the muscle belly many years ago. I also strained the right rectus femoris near its origin, high up on the thigh. And I also strained my left lumbar erector, also in the muscle belly, also many years ago. And the 4th injury, which was by far the most cumbersome, was a sizable tear of the labrum in my left hip. And all those injuries I've listed in no particular order, but in all cases, I guarantee you that if I could go back in time, I could prevent each and every one of them. And it wouldn't be by not training that day. Instead, it would be by adjusting everything that I had been doing leading up to that point, because the injuries themselves were simply the result of a culmination of factors finally coming to a head and biting me in the ass. In the case of my adductor, for example, I had been coming off of a powerlifting meet where I squatted 523 pounds, bench pressed 308 pounds, and deadlifted 556 pounds at a body weight of 162 pounds, all in competition. It wasn't quite what I wanted overall, and I am mostly just mad that I jumped to 584 pounds for my final deadlift of the day and kind of lost it on my grip. Think I could have had a better total, but I digress. It was a solid performance overall. The training leading up to that meet went well. The peak went very well. I hit many lifetime PRs during that time, and the meet went well also. So that's all good, right? Now, my big error, however, kind of came after the prep and after the meet was already over. See, I really wanted to squat 4 plates, 405 pounds, for a set of 10 reps. So just 3 days after the meet, I was back in the gym and I squatted 355 pounds for 3 solid sets of 10 reps. The following week, I did it with 365 pounds, 3 sets of 10. In the 3 weeks following that, I did 375 for 10, 385 for 10, and 395 for 10. And I'll tell you, it was pretty damn solid. And this was all while front squatting 5 sets of 5 reps later on in the week as well, just 2 or 3 days later. And this all followed a brutal meet prep where I was squatting heavy 3 or 4 times a week, and I did tough PR sets during that time frame of 430 pounds for 7 reps, 455 pounds for 5 reps, 480 pounds for a triple. And I hit lifetime PR singles of 510, 515, 520, and finally 530 pounds. I was also bench pressing 3 times per week with a combination of high volume and high intensity, and I hit several lifetime PRs along the way on that lift as well. So then finally, after all of that brutal work for months on end and very, very, very little rest, the day arrived and I was gonna crush 405 pounds for a set of 10 solid reps on the squat. But then I got to my final warm-up set with just 375 pounds. I started my descent and I tore my right adductor about halfway down on the very first rep. Mind you, this was a weight that I had squatted for 3 fucking sets of 10 reps just a few weeks prior to this. This was a weight that represented just 70% of my 1 rep max at the time. This was a weight that Jeff Cavaliere, famous strength coach Jeff Cavaliere, expects me to be able to squat for 10 sets of 10 reps with just 60 seconds of rest in between sets, and yet somehow, almost unfathomably, this candy ass weight managed to injure me on my very first rep of the day. So what in the hell happened? Well, in hindsight, it's obvious as fucking day. I didn't manage my fatigue properly. I didn't adhere to proper rest and recovery protocols, even though I had been busting my ass with very difficult training for months on end at that point. And I wanted to hit that 405 for 10 so badly that I went straight from this tough, heavy training cycle, then into a meet peak, then into a competition, and then with barely any rest at all, my dumbass jumped straight into a tough volume meso cycle. Like, what kind of an idiot would do that? The kind who gets injured, that's who. Same story when I strained my lumbar erector a few years prior to that. I had been doing a squat every day program, which at this point, please don't do that. I do not recommend for anybody to even try squatting every day. It's got its ups and its positives, but it's too difficult to manage overall. I just don't recommend it. Anyway though, I digress. I had a max front squat at that time of about 400 pounds, right? And I had been squatting every damn day for a few months at that point, hitting a daily minimum on the front squat of 375 pounds, if I recall correctly, while sitting at a body weight of just about 155 pounds at that time. So really pretty damn strong, not too shabby, right? And I prided myself on really fucking busting my ass and working harder than anybody. And then one day, I'm working up to my daily minimum, like I do every single freaking day of my life, and I hit 335 pounds on the front squat. Easy fucking peasy, butter, it moves fast as hell, right? But somehow I pull my freaking erector muscle somewhere along the way. And again, I'm an idiot. Don't do what I did. I didn't manage my fatigue properly and I paid the fucking price. I had been pushing that minimum every single day, even on days where I should not have been doing it, and basically ignoring the daily performance fluctuations that are inherent with that style of training. And eventually, because of that, I was brought down by a candy-ass, easy-ass rep weight. A weight that represented just over 80% of my 1 rep max at the time. And the hip labrum was really the same deal. I can't pinpoint when that one occurred specifically because that injury is of the insidious variety where it kind of sneaks up on you. And then one day you realize, oh shit, my hip is all fucked up, right? But I was squatting too much, man. Too heavy, too frequently, too much volume, grinding too many goddamn tough reps, and thinking that I was so good that I was gonna bully my way past physiological boundaries just by working harder than everybody else. And again, I paid the price, and that time it needed surgery to move past it. It sucks to suck, but a valuable lesson was learned. Now, in the case of Ryan Crowley, we see an obvious history of steroid abuse in a very, very young kid. A young kid who's carrying an insane amount of lean mass, meaning he can only have been on these steroids for so long, right? He's only 23 years old. He hasn't actually been around all that long in the grand scheme of things. So even if he started using it 17 or 18, that's only 5 or 6 years of use. And lean muscle tissue is a long game. I've started to learn that more and more myself these last few years, but it takes years and years to accrue impressive amounts of muscle tissue. And he's managed to get about 300 pounds of lean mass onto his frame by age 23. That's incredible. And it means that his doses are very, very high. And it means that his body likely ballooned up in size very, very quickly. So couple these high doses of steroids and Ryan's rapid rate of growth with his insane mobility restrictions, and you could even argue that him getting injured had absolutely nothing to do with the particular training session itself at all, but rather that this was simply a fucking inevitability at that point. A matter of when, not if. Now that's a bit of an extremist perspective, but I could certainly argue that point and make it very, very valid. Think about a teenager who hits puberty and goes from being 5'5" to 6'1" seemingly overnight. The body grows so rapidly that the person inside of it basically loses control over it for a period of time. They become this lanky, uncoordinated thing until they've had a chance to acclimate to their new frame, and that takes time. The same thing would happen to somebody like Ryan, who's ballooning up in weight and muscle size so rapidly. All the structures in the body can't necessarily keep up with that. The tendons, especially, are one of those slow developing structures. They're avascular tissues. They do not have good blood flow like muscles do, and so they cannot possibly keep pace with that level of rapid development. So now, the muscles are so strong and the tendons are so inflexible that one of them literally gets pulled off the bone by the force of the muscle that it could no longer compete with. But this outcome is one that was years in the making, right? It's a process that required years and years of negative groundwork to be laid by Ryan before it finally came to fruition. The injury itself had been set in motion years before Ryan ever picked up that 220 kilogram barbell. In my own case, the injuries were all quite minor overall because in all likelihood, because I'm not abusing steroids, but the general sentiment still stands. It took me months of stupidity to get to the point where my body finally said, look, dude, enough is enough. It didn't just happen by chance or by bad luck on those particular days. It was a line of dominoes that had been knocking each other over for quite some time. The injury just happened to be the final domino on the line. They were all knocked down at that point, so something had to give. Look, the point that I'm making here is that all of these injuries, mine and Ryan's and probably all the minor ones that you have suffered as well, they all have many causes. Some of them are easily identifiable from an outside perspective, and some are potentially not. Some are easy for me to sit here and point out in hindsight, but maybe they wouldn't be quite so easy to point out when I'm actually in the moment. But that doesn't make this fruitless. The point is you have to look deeper. The training that we do is a huge part of this whole equation, obviously, right? The way that you manage your fatigue in the gym, how much volume you do, what intensity levels you tend to hang out at, how frequently that you do particular exercises, the actual exercises that you choose to do, etc., etc. Every single training parameter that we can control obviously plays a huge role in this whole thing, but there are many other factors to consider as well. There's diet, there's stress, there's general lifestyle. Do you get enough sleep? Or do you sleep like shit? Do you eat enough calories and protein and carbs and healthy fats? And do they come from highly nutritious sources of food with a wide variety of micronutrients? Or do you subsist off of the supersize me diet? Is your boss a raging fucking asshole? Or is work kind of chill for you? Does your spouse nag you all day long? Are your kids little fucking shits? How's your general mental state? Do you know how to relax at the end of the day? Or are you perpetually wound up? And again, that's just a small taste of the factors involved in this equation. I can't even possibly address every single factor that could potentially affect these sorts of outcomes. As well, I can't answer any of these questions for you. I don't have a camera on you 24 hours a day, and I don't have a line that goes straight into the thought processes inside of your brain. But with a little bit of introspection and perhaps a journal where you log your training and your sleep and your diet and even just general life events, you can answer many of these questions for yourself pretty accurately, right? And over time, that will help you to move perhaps from shitty territory into less shitty territory as it pertains to these important factors in this injury versus not injury equation. If you care about your training and you care about your progress and you care about staying healthy and injury free in the long run, then this isn't really that tall of a task to take on, honestly. Either way, now you know. This shit doesn't really just happen, man. It's not really just bad luck. It's a series of events. It's a culmination. It's a row of dominoes that finally reaches the end of the line. That is where injuries occur. That is how injuries occur. Not inside of a vacuum, but rather as part of the overall tapestry of simply living your life. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers it for today, guys. If you're interested in online coaching or training programs, be sure to visit my website, www.enkirielitefitness.com, for more details. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please remember to hit the like button before you go and help to offset some of those disappearing mother freaking likes. And also share the video around so that it can hopefully get some views and help some people out, help them understand injury prevention, the mechanisms behind injuries, and hopefully help them stay healthy in the long run. And don't forget to leave me some love in the comments down below. But you know what? Screw the algorithm, guys. Just leave me some love because you love me. The algorithm is some broken bullshit anyway, so screw it. I'm done trying to appease that false god. Anyway, keep training hard, my friends, and I will catch you guys next time.